sector organizations. Let me present. Okay, so this topic, I think the word budgetary control is a terminology by itself to reflect these control procedures, okay, to make sure that government money is being utilized properly, by the agencies or ministries or controlling officers, okay, or by the person in charge. Right, you come across this word before, budgetary control, maybe in other class? Budgetary control. Yes, class?
Yes.
No. Hey, very quiet, huh? Okay, never mind. We'll continue. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll cover budgetary control, objective activities, and then we discuss on features of effective budgetary control, and then what are the mechanisms. And I think I will also, this point will show maybe example or workbooks. I think some of this information you can download from the internet. I think they are widely available. I mean, as an example, okay. So what kind of reports that can be generated for budgetary control? Okay, the objective to ensure that all expenditures are in line with the budgeted amounts and the level of activities envisaged in the budgets are achieved. Okay, so I think when we discuss on line item budgeting, basically government agencies, they receive budget allocation. I mean, it's just like yourself, isn't it? You receive a scholarship, so that's basically a form of budget given to you. Because you don't, let's say you receive scholarship of 500 ringgit a month, okay, or PTPTN, right? Or your parents. That money that you receive from these institutions, either from PTPTN, from your parents when you are here as students, from your scholarship providers. This money is restricted money. Is money with purpose. Okay, it's not for general use that you can use as you like, but you will spend in the context that for you to support your studies. Okay, of course, quite flexible. Maybe you use for internet, for food, for clothing, right? As long as all these activities and materials, they are supporting you as students, okay, to achieve excellent academic results, right? So you can use the same logic with regards to when government, these agencies, they receive funding. Okay, like in our university, we receive around 500 million per year, okay? Then you can see various mechanisms of various agencies they receive differently. So recently, I think last class we mentioned about what do you call it? What was the additional allocation? Pemerkasa, right? Okay, Pemerkasa with additional 11 billion fiscal injection. Fiscal injection here means 11 billion budgets for government expenditures, right? So 15 billion, a huge amount of money, okay? And I think in the previous class we discussed on examples, okay, where, for instance, like supports for SME entrepreneurships, where all this funding being channeled through government agencies, for like BSN, SME Corps, okay, as an example. Because these are organizations, they know their target groups, their SMEs, they have that history and context, so they can achieve, they can deliver. Okay, that's very specific objective they have to achieve, right? So they can use those money that be channeled to them, okay, for, let's say they receive money that's supposed to support, okay, SME entrepreneurs, okay, in the country. They can use that money, to build new facilities, okay, Of course, they can receive the cash money from the government, but of course, cash is very liquid, isn't it? Very fluid. You can use as you like. But because it is a specified use for specified use, so they must follow and respect that instructions. Okay, otherwise the person in charge can land into trouble if they're okay. So many control that is there in the government. Okay, of course the worst scenario will be abuse of power. Okay, but that is very extreme. Okay, otherwise they will not be able to achieve what their objective by itself. In terms of performance, is bad already. Okay. Right. That's its objective. Then we look at the budgetary control. Okay. What are the activities in budgetary control? Record keeping of expenditures via vote books. Okay. That's a very common term used. Okay. So instead of accounting record, okay, or double entry or general ledger, so they don't call general ledger for budgetary control. They call it vote books. Okay, I think these are for government. Vote books. Either it is manually, okay, using physical like cash books, or basically online system, right? But generally, it is known that for budgetary monitoring, the record is under vote books. Okay, that's the record keeping. Okay, so I think at this point, you should have a very clear idea, even for public sector or private sector organizations. Generally, the accounting system for management accounting and financial accounting, it can be separate system. Okay. The only thing is, sometimes for the small companies or medium size, they may not be able to afford for a separate system. They just use GL for their management accounts. Okay, but it is quite useful for monitoring purposes. But of course, it will not be able to meet the requirements for variance analysis and others that is generally should be available for management accounting purposes. Okay. Right. Develop relevant expenditure report, including report as required by the Treasury circulars. Okay. So in other words, this budgetary control is not only for managerial purposes, but it's also part of the government control as well. Particularly controlled by the Treasury. Okay. Because the Treasury, they also have to make sure that government spend the allocation. Because this allocation, one is the level of services that's supposed to be provided by the government agencies, that one. The other, of course, there is a fiscal effect of government expenditures, okay? And definitely the development effect, okay, social and others. So that's why they need to make sure what's going to be allocated need to be spent as it need to be spent, okay? Okay, with the report, definitely part of budgetary control is to report, analyze, and provide feedbacks. Okay, so with the this expenditure report, okay, from there they can take the necessary actions or make decisions. Similar to preparing and reporting of management account is in the private sector entities. Okay, so management accounts normally is provided monthly, okay, based on GL, general ledger, and with that they can develop management accounts. Normally, I think that's very quick, isn't it? You can run this through the software. But then, of course, it's not audited. That's why it's very similar. Okay, but the only difference is here is basically monitoring the budget, the level of expenditures against the allocation given. Okay, the allocation given by the government. Okay, to what extent all this used, and what is left that they need to plan for the remaining period. And that is why sometimes budget profiling is also relevant, where they can plan the level of usage with different months and different level of use of the budgets. All right, now we move on to the features of effective budgetary control. Right, collection of data, inputs and outputs is initiated at the lowest level of activity. Okay, this level information, it can be financial and non-financial information. Okay, so at the lowest level here means the Okay, the unit that is okay. I think even at university level, you can see, yeah, we have university, and then we have faculty, we have divisions. These are can be considered as lowest level, in the activity of government. If you compare that, to trace that to the ministry, and then through the parliament. Okay, so that this information that is provided or collected at the agency level, that's more relevant, because they have the details, what information are collected. Okay, so at the cost center level or responsibility centers, so here is mentioned expense, profit, and investment. Okay, as you understand, responsibility centers. I think from for budgetary control purposes or topic, you can bring in your understanding on what do you call it, responsibility accounting or SBU accounting. I think that you learned from previous topic in other MA, maybe in DMC or in cost management. You learn SBU performance measure, isn't it? You remember that? SBU accounting or SBU performance measure, ROI, okay? And then you have cost center. You still remember that in the class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Remember,
yes. So you can bring those understanding to this discussion, okay? Maybe you just need to revise or make it more applicable to public sector organizations. Okay, the structure of responsive centers correspond with the program or activity structure of the organizations. Okay, so listen. I think second point, you listen. I mean, you should be able to appreciate. Okay, the structure of responsive centers, because you know responsibility center means, okay, that accounting report will be provided for that center. One. The other is there is manager that is in charge of being responsible for that. They must achieve that results. Okay. Secondly, there are funding for that center. Okay, for them to function as a responsibility center. Okay, so if you look at this, the structure of responsibility centers correspond with program or activity structure organization. So program generally for budgeting purposes, isn't it? So for budgeting purposes, the program will be provided. So this must be consistent, okay? Because in terms of reporting, uh, is basically responsibility center that basically prepare the reports, okay? Whereas program is for the channeling the budget. So these two need to meet. Basically, they should have these characteristics. For each center, they also receive budgets, okay? That's one. Third, information on budget position must be relevant and timely, as well as sufficient, okay, including cost of variances. So I think basically that is information to support, okay, expenditure level, because government spend money. Okay, what is it for? Okay, what was the activities that they spent on it? Okay, and then definitely enough information to support that these activities been undertaken that is basically consistent with the objective. That's one. With the allocation, okay, what is being authorized for for them to undertake all these activities, right? So to be able to tell this, definitely performance information must be collected at the lower level, okay, or in other words, at the implementation agencies, enough information, because sometimes performance information, the non-qualitative or non-quantitative information, sometimes it is not part of double entry system, okay, where you have all this payment. I think accounting system is quite systematic, okay, where you have payment vouchers, you have authorization level, you have receipts. All documents are basically must be complied with. Whereas on top of that, the information for performance that all these expenditures are supporting, sometimes okay, need I mean the managers need to collect all this information so that when they report, because every when they use the budget, they need to provide the reports, okay, for all their activities. So they need to collect enough information. I think these definitely accountants have a role to play here to make sure when they report they have enough information to disclose. okay, and more meaningful. Because sometimes this, I think why I'm saying this is basically, when at this university, I mean, as a public university also, we have so many ranking, we have so many information being collected in the university, okay, for so many audit and the ranking, and also accountability, okay. So that's why the information, the right information to be collected by the system, okay. Otherwise, even the managers, they themselves must know that some of this information are important for them to keep, so that they can, when the report is ready, they can share. Okay, so these are the issues. I think, of course, ideally, performance-based information should be systematically collected. Okay, so I think the challenge will be, do they have the information system? Okay, that's one. The other is, can their information system can capture all this information? Okay, so these are some of the issues. Maybe, I think we in accounting, we like to review. Okay, we have that perspective of audits. Sometimes we have that understanding or review, and to make sure that information is sufficient. You can bring all the skills, to evaluate this issue. Lastly, controllable and non-controllable expenditures can be categorized separately if practicable. Okay, I think, but generally in government, this is quite difficult to apply, because a big part of the expenditures are fixed costs, and I think some of them, the managers may not have the ability to control, as what we understood in the case of it's like variable costs, isn't it? Controllable, okay. But to a certain extent they can, okay, depending how they can, the level of the flexibility that the managers have to mobilize the resources, okay. Sometimes the resources are given to them, then they have a limited discretion to in terms of to control the resources, okay. These are, I mean, some of the issues that can be discussed, okay. Right. Ideally, of course, this should, I mean, the best accounting practice, controllable and uncontrollable expenditures should be separately reported. Okay, now we move on to types of responsibility centers, okay, for budgetary control purposes. And the first one is cost centers. Okay, so in other words, okay, at this point for budgeting, we talk about programs and sub-activities. So all these programs and activities, they can also be translated into responsibility centers. Okay, so that's why I think, of course, I mean, at this point we talk about responsibility center, but in Malaysian government they widely use the word PTJ. Yeah? PTJ, P Penang, T Terengganu, J Johor, or J Japan, PTJ. Okay, what PTJ stand for? Responsibility Center. PTJ is in Malay. So what do you think? What does that stand for? PTJ. In English, it is a Responsibility Center. In Malay, yeah, PTJ, the short form. So most likely, what is the name? Anyone?
Pusat Tanggungjawab.
Pusat Tanggungjawab, correct. PTJ is Pusat Tanggungjawab. So these are the term used by AG. Okay, so PTJ, if you look at the expenditure report, you see the word PTJ. So what is a PTJ? So you know that these are the responsibility center. Of course, the next question is, you will ask, is this responsibility center, so what is the status? Is it a cost center? Is it, in SBO accounting, we can have cost center, revenue, or what do you call it? Investment center, right? So, but here is cost center, right? Cost center. The PTJ is the cost center. So if you look at these are the attributes of the cost center. Most common type of responsive centers in public services. Okay, so I think very strong point. The first point. So you can expect that most of the government agencies, they are cost center. Okay, they are given budget, then they spend to achieve certain objective. That's why, because they are not maximizing profits. Okay, they are not. They don't charge. Their price also is heavily subsidized. If they charge price, I think now, of course, these are gradually keep on changing, because government budget are relatively limited. If they can charge, the users, they will charge accordingly. And but of course, interestingly, I think this is the only entity. If you compare with the private sector, okay, of course, in the private sector they also have a different quality of services. Then they will charge different price, isn't it? But for government, they cannot have that tier of products, and then for the citizens pay according to their affordability. Of course, that the government don't do that because they treat all Malaysians or all their citizens equally, right? But the only thing is they do certifying their charges. Okay, for instance, like let's say, I think you can see this clearly. Let's say in the hospital, okay, Malaysian and non-Malaysian, of course, they charge differently. Okay, so you can see they have the costing system to develop the basis of their charges. But of course, for Malaysian, it's heavily subsidized. Even for non-Malaysian, it's heavily subsidized. I think they try to charge at cost. I think for non-Malaysian, they try to charge at full cost. But the issue is their accounting system, can they provide the support for them to charge at full cost? But in any case, you can see at least they can charge the variable cost. So that will be the benchmark. So they do have differences in charging, but still heavily subsidized price. So they are not really profit center or revenue center. Okay, so they are if they charge us also, is basically they're still holding mainly a cost center status. For instance, like schools sometimes nowadays, I think there are schools where, let's say boarding schools, they charge the parents or students. There are slight different charges. Maybe those who have a higher income, they charge. The parents have to pay more than other groups of students. These are examples, but still, if you look at the amount of charges, heavily subsidized. Okay. So that's the nature. So mainly, if you look at government entities, they are cost centers. Okay. Second point, department and study bodies generally hold cost center status. Okay, ministries are cost center, departments, study bodies, but a huge amount of money. Yeah. So that's the question. How, if you learn, I think if you learn in DMC, for instance, I'm not sure what discussion was done, but in by the management accounting academics, that in the private sector, definitely they try to minimize the number of cost center, okay, for them to be able to manage their profit better. Okay, but the government don't have that discretions, okay, that they can have more profit center, okay, because the charges or the revenue collection is very different, okay, through taxation and others. So that's why the departments and bodies, okay, generally they hold the cost center status. Third, cost centers under ministry level or within government agencies under the ministries. Okay, costs are allocated to the appropriate cost center for the purpose of budget allocation and budgetary control. Okay, so in other words, it's budget allocation. So and then why cost center means because they don't generate revenue. Okay, so there is given budget for them to use to provide the services. The information on cost help to determine unit cost of product and services or activities. I think that is very relevant. Even they are cost center, but doesn't mean that they don't need unit cost information or costing system. Because later on, I think, partly also we already cover. Government generally they try to control their costs because overall government expenditures are huge. Okay, they have that incentive, and then I think the Treasury, the AG, and even if it is statutory bodies, they sometimes they also can collect money. Yeah, okay, they can develop their institutions becoming more financially independent. That is also possible. Okay, you can see, particularly at the state level, and sometimes even at the ministry level, no, at the federal government level. If the entity, because generally the entities are run by the professionals, then if there is a commercial opportunities, they also can move to the directions of part of their activities can be commercialized. Okay, there's also an option in the government. Right. In any case, they need this information system or costing system that can help for them to monitor their activities. Right. Total cost suitable measure of services provision activities. Level of activities. Okay, to reflect their how efficient and effective they are. Okay. So that's why you can see if most of the government responsive centers are in the form of cost center. That's why you can see that non-performance information is becoming very important. And even I think nowadays it's quite a common language for all government agencies that they use comprehensive performance measurements. Okay, not only financial but non-financial as well, because to try to address the demand for value for money by the public, by the citizens, by the politicians, okay, to make sure that government, okay, can they deliver their services. Right, unit cost of products and services useful for efficiency consideration, definitely, okay. So that's why the initiative is there, okay, from, as I mentioned earlier, that when they, through with MBS, they introduced micro accounting system. It's basically, if you remember, one of the performance item and program agreement was unit cost. So how for them to help all government agencies to prepare the information, so they introduced micro accounting system, okay, as a costing system. I was told that is like a standard costing, okay, but then now with the outcome-based budgeting, they try to upgrade with activity-based costing, okay. But of course, you know that activity-based costing, you can move from less sophisticated to more sophisticated of ABC process, okay. So to what extent these have been implemented, because still study can be done on that. If you finish your degree program, if you want to do your masters, maybe you can study all these areas. Useful decision making and control the knowledge of different type of cost is essential. Okay, of course, this need to be taken into account. If the centers have identifiable and measurable output, allocation of resources should also be based on plan level of activity. Okay, like for instance, here is kilometers for roads, number of students per university. Okay, I think for this is basically there was an attempt to when they want to develop the allocation, level of allocation for government agencies, then they look at the level of activity, right? I think the second example, then number of students per university. If I'm not mistaken, that's also become a parameters for them to decide the budget that they prepare and that they provide for universities. Basically, number of students play a role, okay, on providing the budget, right? So that because more students, definitely you need more budgets, right? As simple as that. That is reflecting the level of activity. Contracting out services to private sector need to consider non-financial costs and other information. Because definitely for cost center, how they manage their organizations or entities, definitely contracting out of services is one of the options. Right. Okay. Now, any questions so far? Us. Are you there or you're not there? Yes.
Yes.
Sister Shakira, any question? Okay. Let me see. Oh, did I show the connect? Yeah. It's okay. It's following, isn't it? Right. Any question? No.
No, sir.
So far, so good.
No,
Makes sense.
sir. Yes, good, sir. Good, sir.
Okay. Right. Maybe I call a few names, to make sure everybody is around. Okay. I mean, just to make sure, I have my, we talk about budgetary control, so I must have certain level of control in class as well, isn't it? Okay. Because sometimes so many stories about online learning, when students show their photo, Of course, I trust you, okay? I'm not saying that you're doing all this because sometimes they put name on, but basically the students are sleeping, so we try to avoid. I think it's important to listen to my lecture because of for exam. All right, so we continue. Next form is profit investment centers. I just put them together. Okay, profit investment centers at government level, agency level, both at federal and state government. So I think it's quite easy because in the case of Malaysian government, there are so many. I think Malaysian government is they have that policy, heavily involved in the business. Okay, so you can see major GRC like Petronas, TNB, Sam2-2021. Okay, Bank Islam, I think that indirectly through, directly, because Tabung Haji is a statutory body. Okay, it's not a company. Okay, these are all example of profit or investment centers in the government. Okay, that's one. I think mainly that GLC, GLIC. What is GLIC? GLICs. Anyone?
Government linked investment company.
Yes, government-linked investment companies. I think basically government-linked investment companies are what are they? Hazana, PNB, Tabung Haji, KWAP, I think, and LTAT, Lembaga Tabung Angkatan Tentera. Okay, and the rest are GRCs. Okay, subsidiaries of statutory bodies also is kind of definitely they are profit or investment centers. Sharing characteristics of private companies with government ownership and governance, okay, because they have the government ownership. Competitive advantage to secure public sector procurements. Okay, sometimes they have that as advantage, and because of they're part of the government, and they have that competitive. And you can see recently, even if you look at sometimes if the services I mean they have more flexibilities and they can bring in more expertise for the services. I think, for instance, recently they established a company, isn't it, to undertake this installation of 5G network, isn't it? So they develop a company, and then this company headed by, I think they bring in someone from industry, industry leaders that is very have vast experience in the network, in telecommunication network. So that flexibility in the form of when they are in the company, form of company. So you need to recognize that level of flexibility. Okay, but JLC also can be. I think control must be very important, governance, because otherwise one NDB problem will be repeated. Okay. Right, and twin pillars, sometimes they have social objective and profit objective. There was an attempt, I think during the time of Pak La was Prime Minister, so they tried to streamline that GRC should be profit objective, okay? Social objective will be secondary, okay? But I think it's quite difficult because they have that government ownership, okay? Sometimes they have that social objective as well. Maybe okay, of course, social objective here with regards to social, I mean, government priorities, government priorities. Of course, now when we talk about social, people just mention about SDG. So SDG not only by government but by private sectors as well. But even SDG are promoted by GLC, isn't it? Okay, but for your assignment, okay, don't take this GLIC or GLC as your agency, because they are very similar to profit making. You learn this in all other subjects, so do not take them. Okay, just discuss as part of our class discussion. But for your assignment, you take other than GLIC and GLCs. Okay, either at the federal level, state level, or at the local government. Okay, you can also some of the groups. Okay, you have international students. You can use company or entities in your own in your own country as well. Okay, maybe you can make comparison if your group, I mean, a combination of Malaysian and other international students. Maybe you can make comparison as well. Quite interesting to share. Right, creation of responsibility centers within government organization. I think we talk about responsibility center. What is responsibility center? But and how to create or establish a responsibility center. Right. In the case of government, as I mentioned, it's they can start from a program and activity, then it will be translated into an entity, okay, and then the budget will be provided for that, right? So it become an institution or organizations. So you can see these the rationale to create a responsibility center, increase size of activities, okay, let's say ICT, okay. Uh, for instance, like I think last time, for instance, women issues, okay, there is no Ministry of Women, but I think during the time of Pala, it was established the Ministry of Women. Within that also, there are so many new services being developed based on the needs of the country. Another is technology. I think we have this green technology, right? Maybe you start from small activities and then more support. Okay, so with that, they need a specific agency, yeah, okay, to handle or to address the problems. Okay, of course, recently I think with regards to all these what do you call it, Internet of Things related technology. Okay, as an example. Improving financial management and service delivery, okay, because when they hold responsibility center, okay, I think if it is cost center, they be able to, if you look at the functions and role, okay, let us look at this. Ability to collect revenue and pay the expenditures within the authorized limits. Okay, the ability to pay, okay, the payment autonomy is significant because if the activities or entity, right, or an office, a government office, they are not able to pay their activities or their procurements, and then there's a possibility to their activities will be delayed. Okay, every time they want to conduct their activities, the payments always they have to refer to the state level of agency, or they must refer to the HQ. Then there will be some bureaucracies there, for them to execute the activities. So by that also, it also means they can select their own suppliers. They can enter into contracts, okay, with because they can fire, okay, of staff. These are also essentials to make an organization's activities, operations works. So I think that's why that can explain improving financial management and service delivery. Have own bank accounts in the case of responsibility center and statutory bodies. Okay, so bank accounts can be created by this office. Okay, but for departments they cannot. Departments generally they rely on AG office at the state level or at the district level to pay on their behalf. Okay, need to prepare internal financial report, expenditure reports. A responsibility center is part of flexibility to manage activities. I think we talk about freedom to manage principles. So then they have that flexibilities and to improve their management. I think these are very consistent. If you still remember participative budgeting, okay, decentralization, devolved budgeting, these are very consistent. The use of responsive centers to achieve all these, how these principles can provide benefits in providing the public services, because they have financial flexibility. The local managers, the responsibility managers, they have financial autonomy as well as operational autonomy. I think that is very important. Okay. Just like yourself, I think for you to be able to relate this, how to make sense of what I've just said, it's just like yourself. Okay, you as a person, okay, you are a responsibility center by yourself. Are we not? Are you a responsibility center? Right? Okay, you imagine. Why I'm saying that, because you receive budget, okay, as a student. Either you receive scholarship, you receive PTPTN money, or you receive money from your parents, correct? Is it relevant to you, this question? Or all of you are self-financing? Class? All of you are self-financing? All of you are self-financing?
No.
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
Yes, I'm saying, you imagine that you is a responsibility center, huh? So because you receive a location, and then there are two ways, okay, for you to use the money. One is the money is basically capped by, let's say we just focus on parents. Huh? Let's say your parents say, I will give you allocation 500 every month, right? But they said allocation, but they don't give you the money. But they said, I give you allocation 500,000 ringgit per month. But every time you want to buy food, they give you coupons. Okay, you can claim. If you want to buy church, you have to call them to buy on your behalf. Okay, that is a location. Okay, that's one option. The other option is they give you the 500 ringgit in cash, and then you will buy as long as it's within the parameters as students. So which one do you prefer? To receive allocation or to receive cash in hands?
Cash.
Cash in
Receive
hand.
Huh?
Cash.
How many prefer allocation? Say yes. No one. How many prefer cash in hand?
Yes.
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 Yes. I want cash.
Okay.
Cash better.
So I think you can your personal experience, you can apply this to government organizations. Okay. Because to what extent the autonomy, the financial and operational flexibility can be delegated to the responsibility centers. Okay, if they hold that responsibility center status, generally they have that flexibility. Okay, to make payments. Okay, the allocation is given to them. They can, let's say I just mentioned about selecting garments, clothes. If you ask your parent to buy on your behalf, okay, do you think that they will buy clothes that the most preferred by you or by their own choice?
Preferred by them.
Their own choice.
Their choice.
Yes, okay, based on their choice. You have little or less flexibility. You can tell them, yes, please buy this red color, whatever, the price like this. You can just give the specifications. But they will buy for you, but you're not sure. Can that meet your expectation or not? Similar in organizations. Once they don't have that autonomy to make payments, to select their suppliers, they rely on other people to buy, to select type of services that is needed by the local, then it can create problems. Okay, so that's why holding the responsibility center status have that flexibility. They can choose what they prefer, so that they can provide good services. I'm not saying flexibility here means that they, in light of achieving better services in that context. Okay. So that's how you can see responsibility centers, what it means, right? And okay. Now we move on. Okay, definitely the tools for budgeting control is the reports. Okay, with expenditure report, managers of responsibility centers are able to manage their budget to achieve budget and organizational objective. Okay, of course, I mean, for every report, there should be relevant, accurate, and timely report of actual and budgeted expenditures or financial performance, part of performance monitoring at all management level. That's why if you see this second point, definitely you are accounting students. Of course, these are, you've been taught about this right from the early of your study, isn't it? So the information should be relevant, accurate, timely, but in practice, how to make sure that this is available, okay, for the managers. That's one. Okay, the information system, can they support this too? Okay, in terms of the content of the reports, okay, are they be able to support the needs of the managers for them to be able to manage their finance better? This is also an issue. So that's why the role of accountants are very important for them to contribute in one, of course, in the designing of the information system. The other is to prepare the reports. Okay, so all these competencies need to be developed in government organizations. I think they still have that problems until today, because the main focus of the financial budgeted report is more on financial per se, on spending level. Okay, last point, budget may need to be reviewed or adjusted depending on the reason or deviations. Thus, the operational plans, including transfer by environment between programs. Okay, so with budgetary control, what it means is also like, because some, if they, I think this also give, I think inconsistent with the midterm review for the budget. The midterm review for annual budget is also done. Midterm review for the Malaysian plan, the development budget is also been undertaken. But I think for our focus, we also should focus on the annual budget. Okay, so they have midterm review to make sure that all government allocations can be utilized, okay, fully utilized, so that they can maximize the level of activities or their services. So that's why the role of controlling officers is very key, because they are managing multiple programs. Okay, as we discussed on the what do you call it in MBS, okay, environment and others, and transfer. So that's why controlling officers, they have that flexibility, because they don't have to basically ask approval from the treasury. Okay, for them to be able to transfer between program activities, to make sure that the money can be the allocation can be fully utilized. Okay, so that's why one option by the agencies. Let's say if there is a possibility, or there is a what do you call it, the potential or shortfall of allocation. So one option, definitely they can request from their controlling officers. Okay, if they can receive budgets. Obviously, of course, it is not as clear. It's not always an option, but this possibility is there. Okay, maybe for contingencies or for special needs. So this kind of request can be made to controlling officers. Okay, because the treasury generally, if MBS policy, definitely MBS policy is still on, that they cannot ask for additional budget for the existing policies, for the existing activities. But if you look at, for instance, recently the government, they allocate Pemekasa allocation for 11 billion. That is basically extra, and you can see most of the funding is not for the agencies directly, but funding for the target groups, Malaysian target group, for SME entrepreneurs, for workers, for them to be able to be to support their life. Okay, so these are some of the issues. But definitely the key, how they can tell that there is a shortfall of budget. So the budgetary control, the monitoring of the spending is a key to support this. Okay. Right, budget control in Malaysian government in terms of who should monitor, right? These are a survey, of course, it's quite old, but I think the survey just to give you an idea who involved in budgetary control. So you can see that top management, combination of line managers or mainly line managers. Okay, of course, line managers normally the details is basically managed by them, but the top management more on overall in terms of budget for main activities and others. Okay, but involvement with okay, from MBS and onward, definitely you can expect all level. On top of that, I think we discussed on outcome-based budgeting, where the control officer, the ministers themselves have KPIs to achieve. So more, I think, more emphasis on how well they need to get involved in all these activities. Okay, responsibility of budget monitoring still, is it mainly by top management? Because top management, they can focus on strategic directions, combination between top to align between strategic and operational priorities. And of course, the advantage of monitoring by line managers, because they are very close to target customers' problem and needs. Okay, so in other words, if the agency, if they can be a bit bureaucratic in nature, then possibly the line managers, there is still a miscommunication between line managers and target groups. As a one option, of course, there are multiple factors that can explain why certain services are not available, for instance. And of course, the easiest one is budget availability is also a factor can determine, okay, what type of services can be provided to public. Okay. Right, and then budget expenditure report to Parent Ministry and the Treasury. Expenditure report is submitted to Parent Ministry and the Treasury periodically. Okay, but now I think online is available. Okay, but by policy it should be monthly. And then there is a specific report, they call it report A441. Yeah? But these are all through the information system, the online system, FG, FMS. Budget expenditure report, okay, for expenditure performance reporting. Is not only within the agency itself, is also reported to the Parent Ministry as well as the Treasury. Okay, these are the government financial management accounting system. I think you should recognize that all these are online now. Okay, in terms of budgetary control, budget allocation, budgetary control, as well as the financial accounting. Okay, so they basically use online system. By right, okay, manual system should be at this point possibly the specific activities, operating accounting activities, but generally it's an online system. Right, so with regards to the budgetary control as well, I think I provide differences between department and statutory bodies in funding procedures. Okay, just further highlight, I think I did mention. Okay, departments receive budget allocation in the form of warrants. Budget warrant distributed via Parent Ministry. Controlling officers are Chief Secretary of Parent Ministries. Accounts are prepared by Accountants General Department. Cannot offset expenditure against revenue collected, okay, except for self-accounting bodies. Whereas statutory bodies receive budget allocation in the form of cash grants. Grant directly transferred from the Treasury to statutory bodies' bank account. Controlling officer is CEO of the statutory bodies. They also hold self-accounting body status. Self-accounting body mean here they are they prepare their own accounts. Able to offset revenue collected against expenditures. Okay, only then these are the structure. But now I think because they are moving to accrual accounting, okay, there was a plan that they will convert even the ministries and department as self-accounting bodies. So, but the latest updates, okay, I think you can ask AG or whoever, maybe you can share in the class if you have that information, the current status. But there was a plan so that when they introduce accrual accounting, they plan to have that all these government agencies to be able, and of course now it's an online information system, okay, for them to be able to create or to get for the government agencies to have to hold this self-accounting body status. But another issue, of course, the manpower, okay, the accountants and the accounts executive, for them, are they able to prepare the accounts? This can be an issue as well. Right, and then lastly, behavioral considerations, goal congruency. Okay, incongruency may lead to departmentalism in department organizations. Department compete for resources. Budgetary slacks, and then annuality principle. Okay, I think this also was mentioned before. Right, any questions?
Sir,
Yes.
okay, about the cannot offset expenditures just now, what does it mean?
Okay, for departments, that's why when they receive money, they don't receive money. The system is directly channeled to the treasury. Okay, so that's why if you pay to the schools or whatever, is basically you pay directly to Malaysian government. Okay, so that's why the money directly channeled to the treasury. The departments, if they collect money, directly channeled to the treasury. Okay. Whereas the statutory bodies, okay, let's say that's why you pay to IIUM. When you pay the check is payable to IIUM. Okay, IUM also they have IUM accounts. Okay, so then they basically the cash is basically managed by the agency itself. Okay, so that then definitely revenue can offset expenditure, or expenditure can offset revenues. What was the term used just now? offset expenditure against revenue collected. Yes. For statutory bodies, they can because they can keep the cash. Okay. And then of course it depends on the status of the statutory body as well. If they can charge, they can collect revenue, and then their expenses is partly financed by the revenue that they collect. Then of course they can keep the money. Yeah? But if they collect the money and the money must be channeled directly to the government, maybe they can receive fees. Okay, like for instance, like inland revenue. If you look at inland revenue is a statutory body. Inland revenue was and the department. Then it was upgraded or changed the status, become statutory body. Okay, so that's why they receive fees. They collect money tax, and the tax is channeled to the government. Okay, but they receive fees. Okay, and they receive fees for their revenue. Okay, but for other than that, for department study bodies, the money is directly channeled to the treasury. Okay, to the treasury. I think that's I think the understanding of this offsetting between revenue collected and expenditures. But generally, of course, their expenditures are more than their revenue collected. The only difference is the inland revenue because that their work is to collect the tax. But other than that, other agencies, basically the price is all heavily subsidized. Okay, you can disagree with me. Okay, you can disagree with me. I'm just explaining. Maybe you say that I'm wrong also. No problem. Okay, because I think the world of public sector accounting also very dynamic. Nowadays, I think gradually government, if they can, very established government entities, if they can generate their own income, I think they will allow them to generate their own income. And if they can be exposed to the market, they also be allowed to be privatized. Okay, that's also possible. Because privatization, I think, is an ongoing effort by the government. It's not a static. Of course, mainly the privatization happened in the 1980s, okay, before the 2000. But then, from one time to another, you can see that there been privatization process. Okay, either from government agency, become privatized company, or they set up a new company, basically taking over government activities. That's one. The other, of course, the GLC themselves. Okay, because GLC, they are not privatized; they are 100% owned by the government. Okay, but then if there is need that they will, that's why you look at Petronas, for instance. Of course, Petronas is a company wholly owned by the government, but the subsidiaries of Petronas are subjected. Some of them are listed companies. Okay, but at this level. Okay. Because there are, of course, I mean, they try to, what do you call it, monetize, okay, the value that all these companies are. For instance, universities nowadays, okay, the requirements of 1/3 of the budget should be financed by internal funding. It's already there. It's a policy already. So like UIA now, I think, or other universities, maybe National University of Malaysia or Malaya, that 1/3 of their funding should be internally generated. Okay, so as part of their funding requirements. So let's say the company, but of course in stages, it cannot impose it directly because to generate. For instance, let's say UIA, our funding is 400 million. So 1/3 is almost 120, 150. Cannot be done overnight to generate 150 income. It's not 150 revenue, okay? Because funding is after the business make profit, then they have to decide how much can be used as part of the funding. So these are some of the policy. Of course, you can ask all these directors and finance directors the updates of these. Right? Any other questions? One more? Oh, enough already, yeah? Okay. Chat also. Oh, okay. All right. So no question, huh? Okay, I hope that you learned something. So with that, I think I will end this lecture. And if you have any question, you can. I will stay back 1 or 2 minutes. If you sometimes how you want to ask, group issues, I will wait. Otherwise, I will end. So with that, I'll end this lecture with wabillahi taufiq hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.